What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the ThyGap podcast. This is Bogus Nook, and as always, with me is
Being brewed back from the dead.
Brute. What's up? This week we are doing an episode on It's Not Easy Addiction.
Is it like addiction or it's like it's a one word addiction?
That's a good point, bro. Diction is also not easy.
Yeah.
Probably another episode.
Another episode for that of
But we're talking
addiction.
about addiction.
Addiction is an interesting topic, Bogus. It's your choice, let me be honest. And for the first time, you came up with the topic and I was immediately like, we need to do this.
Oh, please, for the first time.
Absolutely first time.
It's what always happens.
Never did it happen.
So, Brute, addiction is defined
Huh.
as the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance or activity.
Absolutely
What a helpful definition.
inconsequential definition.
This is like our engineering answer.
Yeah. It's like,
J&T
like,
Osmania
what is an
level.
induction motor? It's a motor which runs on the principle of induction.
That's it.
Yeah.
It induces.
Induces energy.
You don't know induces?
Yeah. It's like, what is addiction? It's getting addicted.
Okay, now there's another definition under that.
Uh-huh.
What is the true meaning of addiction? So someone already realized that this is
we
not
just
good enough.
did a boo-boo.
Yeah. So here they say addiction is defined as a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking, continuous use despite harmful consequences, and long lasting changes in the brain. It's a complex brain disorder and a mental illness.
This was written by a doctor, without a doubt. Plainly by the number of complicated terms were used in that one sentence.
And we also have what is the meaning of an addicted person. They say one exhibiting a compulsive, chronic, physiological
Yeah.
or psychological need for a habit forming substance, behavior, or activity.
Yeah.
I think this is
Yeah, I think it covers a
coming
wider
closer
ground.
to what we want to talk
Yeah.
about. So
Keep reading. I think that's what this episode is going to be. Keep reading.
third time's the
Shall we
charm.
go to Wikipedia?
No, this is good enough.
Yeah.
So, to cover the context in which we want to talk about addiction, we're talking about an addictive personality,
Yeah.
which usually can get addicted to any sort of thing.
Are we talking about an addictive personality or are we going to talk about the behavior of compulsion with no consequence or compulsion with consequence, whichever way?
Yeah.
So fundamentally, we're talking about the behavior of a person, of anybody, where compulsion is the framework.
Yeah.
So that's what even my definition was. My definition primarily goes around the compulsive need or the nature of a person, where it's no more about context or the premise that he's functioning on,
Yeah.
but he just has to do it.
Yeah. And it's not always completely conscious, right? Some
Yeah.
of it is kind of happening organically.
Yeah.
It is happening by compulsion, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a person is being slave to certain desires.
Yeah, you give in.
You give it.
It's almost like a surrendered behavior.
So why is this not easy, bro?
Addiction as a concept is pretty easy nowadays if you look at it. Why is it not easy to stay away from it is what is probably the
Yeah.
premise that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I have like two different takes on it. First of all, there's an organic addiction that you have, and then there is an inorganic addiction that you have.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you look at an organic addiction, you basically try out something for the sake of experience. Like you try out a cigarette or you try out some alcohol or you try traveling to some place and then you like it. You like the experience
Yeah.
and then you keep repeating that experience for the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens over a period of time, even without you realizing it, you start craving for it.
Yeah.
Like for Hyderabad, it's like a biryani, for example, right? For someone like a Mumbaiker, it might be a vada pav in the context of food per se.
Right.
So this is an organic addiction, if I have to classify it. But what I'm seeing, and throw me some rope here, is that inorganic kind of addiction. Okay.
Okay. And what kind is that exactly?
Primarily what I've seen right now or nowadays is that concept of fearing out and missing out. I don't know. Is
FOMO.
That FOMO.
Fear of missing
Fear
out.
of missing out.
Yeah.
And to keep up with it, people are doing all kinds of things which are instantly addictive to them. or they have an addiction, like posting on Instagram regularly. You don't post something on your social media, you feel like shit, I'm losing out.
Yeah.
Or my day hasn't completed.
Yeah.
And for the sake of that, the quality keeps degrading.
Yeah.
Online shopping is another kind of like, because you see so many ads wherever you go.
Yep.
YouTube, you go to your Gmail, wherever you are on the online space. There's someone or the other exciting you to buy something because there's a discount.
Yeah, and it's not always random stuff. Sometimes, these devices, they kind of show you ads basis a conversation you might have had with some of your friends.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see ads for that product now.
Shoes, you speak about Nike today.
Yeah.
Even not in the context of the product. You're talking about Nike as a context of a brand or a company or a share. Then you're seeing Nike ads on your phone.
Yeah.
And this is causing you to like constantly keep going and checking out what is happening, what is being offered to me, etc. Right? So I call this an addiction again.
There was a time, bro, when our reference to the word addiction was correlated with substance abuse.
Yeah, it's extreme,
just
worst.
Drugs, hardcore drugs, that kind of thing. Nowadays, though, the scope of that term has expanded so much.
Yeah.
Because of exactly the kind of things that you described.
Right.
Online shopping, social media. They're designed in a way to take advantage of a few psychological
effects.
Not effects. Psychological loopholes that there are there in people that designed to take advantage of that. And because, of course, that's also a consequence of information overload. The amount of information
exposure
we have, we don't have time to pay attention to everything. So now everyone is vying for our attention.
Right.
And they're vying for us to get addicted to something.
Yeah.
So that we always keep coming back.
Yeah.
And so it's a split between the consumers and the producers.
Right.
And any kind of producer is now, or a creator is now looking to work on these addictive aspects of marketing or advertising or whatever it is to get people hooked.
And at what levels?
Yeah.
I mean, these are changing the way we function, which is why I find this very dangerous. I'll give you an example. And I think we've spoken offline about this so many times. There was a time where the way you consume news was very, very methodical.
Yeah.
You consume news in the newspaper in the morning. Then you consume news in the afternoon in DD, Doordarshan channel for about half an hour. And that's a dedicated time that you kept for your news consumption.
Right.
Now you open your phone, you have like 20 notifications from InShots, then you have 30 notifications from TOI, and another 40 notifications from Z or God knows which other channel. And though they are giving the same bloody information, you still are consuming the same thing again and again, again and again, again and again.
Yeah.
That eventually forms into an addiction, right? It's like now you're reading everything that's coming up, not even knowing what to make sense of. It is, I feel, it's hurting our ability to analyze something in a very rational way. So what it leads to is having a forced opinion.
Yeah.
And that is the foundation of this is basically you getting addicted to consuming so much of information, right? And that way you see there's so many other avenues like where you're forced to consume so much.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, not organic. That is inorganic addictions.
In the scope of addiction also, we have certain substances that are chemically addictive.
Yeah.
Like their very chemical composition itself will get anybody hooked to them.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about those necessarily. What we're talking about is the fact that any human being has psychological loopholes through which they can get hooked on certain things.
Yeah.
Among these people as well, there is a certain kind of personality called an addictive personality. Now, these people are especially weaker against things that tempt, things that give you that dopamine hit.
Right.
These people are horribly screwed when they get caught up in these small subroutines.
Yeah.
So these people actually have very little hope when it comes to getting addicted to things that don't have a stigma around them, like drugs.
Yeah.
Like if you get addicted to, there was a phase where I got addicted to sleeping very late in the night, and waking up in the afternoon a while back.
Right.
And
late night eatings.
Late night eating.
The midnight meal.
Snack,
Right? Yeah. And I really want to know where these people are who are easily addicted. Because I want them to get addicted to ThyGap. So we need those people, to be honest.
Subscribe and share.
Please get addicted to ThyGap. We only release episodes on every Thursday.
Yeah.
But And that's also one of the reasons why we don't just keep producing episodes day in, day out.
Yeah.
We are very methodical. Like every Thursday we do it so that, there's a pattern. There's a good workflow for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our way of contributing to the society. But it's an interesting thing, right? Like you see there's so many ways that the system is designed, it's being redesigned to get people hooked on.
It's to prey on people.
It's like almost like get into your nerves, get into your brain like 24/7. And video games, another huge example.
For me personally, bro, there have been some games, role-playing games especially.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we did 2-part special on the gifts of gaming. Check it out. Subscribe and share. So,
please, fast.
Yeah. Quickly. There is no time. So video games, bro, there have been some games like Oblivion, Witcher 3, etc. that I've played for hours and hours. When I'm reading a good book, I feel completely sucked in.
That's a good addiction.
I don't sleep. I don't feel like eating.
Yeah.
I skip meals.
But okay, I have a difference of opinion there. That is obsession. That's not addiction. Even I had that.
Okay.
Where
I see what you're saying.
You pick something until unless you complete it.
Yeah,
right. You become very restless.
Yeah.
Right. It also happens in, I don't know if you ever played jigsaw puzzles, but as a kid when I had a lot of jigsaw puzzles which I could play, and it was always like until unless I finish this, I can't move from here. Irrespective if it's a 500-piece puzzle or like a 1,000-piece puzzle, whatever. So books are the same because it's a continuation, right?
Yeah.
And you're working towards an end. So it's almost like an obsession that I want to go to the end and finish this. But video games are a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
Video games are like, you complete it, you would want to go back to it. And I'm not talking about this role play video games because there is a storyline and obviously you want to finish it.
You're living the story of
the games that I played is like FIFA, the sports game where it's basically one match after the other. PUBG, COD.
Mobile games, especially mobile games,
right?
are designed with that addictive subloops.
Like you can respawn, so you're not afraid to if I die, I finish the game. No, you can just keep respawning as long as you want. If you see, there is a huge paradigm shift in the concept of consumption. It's no more a consumption on the basis of need. It's a consumption on a basis of addiction.
Right.
Which is why if you look around, like COVID was a wake-up call because of that reason. For me, if I have to tell about myself, because your life is boring, during COVID is when I realized, oh shit, I bought too many clothes.
Okay.
And I could see about, just to give you a number, 30% of my clothes I bought just because I could.
Right.
Not because I need them. Same way with shoes, right? Same way with so many other things. Shopping has become such a huge addictive thing.
Yeah.
Just because they made it easy. Ordering food, there's a huge list that is coming up in my head right now.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it is not easy because it is inevitable. Like we talked about the scarcity of attention. Like attention and mind share are such big currencies today, along with personal data.
Yeah.
With so many people vying for it, what we need to understand is it is basic human condition. It is not that there is one villain. There is, the innocents. There's no good. There's no bad.
Yeah.
What we need to understand is if we were on the other side of the coin, of the table, we would be doing pretty much exactly the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because you need your audience's attention.
Yeah.
You need their
mind share,
loyalty, and you need their mind share.
Yeah.
So if this is something that we cannot escape, primarily because of the kind of people we are, that is exactly what is making it not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other way I look at it is, I think overexposure is a bad thing because you start losing your ability to create dopamine hits, naturally. Like, for example, why it's not easy is there was a time where going to a movie was an exciting event. So you would wait. There is anticipation that builds. There is anxiety.
It's a social event.
Yeah, you're making your whole timeline for the weekend. Like there's 10,000 things that you do.
You're looking forward to spending time with your company.
Whatever. Or even just for the fact that I get to see my favorite hero or actor on the screen.
Right.
what happened is when that became too accessible, it's almost like the first 10 cigarettes are crazy, but the 11th cigarette almost you don't feel anything, but you are smoking it because now you're addicted to it. And that is seeming to be the pattern in everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And that I feel if I had to blame something, I would blame that because of the easy accessibility, the overexposure to, so much of which
Abundance of choice.
abundance of choice. All these things are actually hurting our ability to create dopamine events, if I can say that. And in search of that, we are just getting addicted to one thing after the other.
There is a parable from the past, that
What's a parable?
like a story, like a small story.
Why don't you just say story?
Because it's one word, that... anyways,
Shut up.
So there is one from the past which explains why exactly abundance of choice can be a bad thing for us. So there's a Middle Eastern old folklore kind of story called Buridan's ass. So it's about this guy called Buridan,
Obviously.
who has a donkey. And so while going from point A to point B in the desert, he stops midway to take rest and to give his animal also some rest, because obviously the ass is carrying his load.
Right.
So the donkey is obviously very thirsty. It's dying of thirst in the desert. So this guy, he places a bowl of water on one side of the ass, and he places another refreshment on the other side. So this donkey now, because it has two choices, one on the right and one on the left, right? It's not able to make up its mind which way it wants to go. Does it want to have a bite of food?
Yeah.
Or does it want water first? So in trying to make up its mind, the story goes that the donkey dies of dehydration. So that story kind of is there to illustrate the fact that what happens with abundance of choice.
Right.
You just get confused.
Right.
You don't make the next move.
Right.
Because you're caught up in trying to get the best thing possible.
Right. And that's the biggest downside. Going to the next point as to why it's important to kind of focus on this.
Okay.
Right, is addictions are not goal oriented. And according to me, anything which is not goal oriented is fucking dangerous. Which is why I said the example that you gave, that I get addicted to a book, is not really a great example of addiction, because you're obsessed with that book because there's a goal that you want to reach.
Right.
But imagine that the book never ends and you're just addicted to it.
Yeah.
And that's not a place where you want to be.
Right.
And that is exactly why we need to take measure of, okay, where do I stop this?
So is it a more process oriented thing then?
Absolutely.
Loop oriented thing.
But it's a vicious circle, basically.
Yeah.
What happens is, at some point, you're no more with that activity or habit or substance. You're just replacing it with something else, but the addiction keeps going on.
Right.
It's just about you wanting to be addicted to something after a point. Basically getting addicted to being addicted.
Right.
That's a dangerous situation to be in, which is why it is important that you keep a measure of what you're doing on a daily basis.
So we've defined what we mean by addiction in this episode, the context, and we've also pointed out why is it exactly not so easy in today's climate, and also
Because the climate changes.
the climate changes. Surprise. But now what we mean by why it is important is, obviously it is not easy to point out a solution to something like this.
This is not a solution.
Because addiction is an umbrella term now.
Yeah, if we figured out the solution, trust me, bogus, ThyGap is $1 million. It's $1 billion.
We're not giving it away for free.
Yeah,
basically.
Absolutely. And ThyGap would have been an anti-addiction camp where Johnny Depp would come if we had the solution.
So now what? What now? If there is no solution? Well, at least the starting point is to figure out that there is a problem, to be able to identify it.
Yeah, give it a structure.
Yeah.
Give it a shape or a form,
So the idea is to, first of all, take a step back and
write down.
look at our own life right now. What am I involved in today or these days which are addictive in nature? What are they? Some of them may be positive, some of them may be negative feedback loops. That's different. But in that also, we need to distinguish which of these are my own doing or within my control, and which of these are being imposed on me by society, by circumstance, by
which are
peer pressure.
Which are the addictions which are a result of influence, basically.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the easiest way to identify them.
And
TV shows
right.
influenced addiction.
Right. And it is also really important for people to figure out if they have a naturally addictive personality. Because if that is the case, then
listen to ThyGap.
You need professional help to be able to break out of that. Because if you don't get professional help for that, then it's
But how do you know?
That's the thing. So how do you know is when you take it too far, your dependence and your slavishness to that addiction, that you are now damaging your personal relations with people near and dear to you because of that addiction. So if you're damaging your personal relations, if you're doing things because of your addiction, but as a result of that, in your life now you're facing obstacles or failures, then you know that your addiction is out of control. And if you have had a trend of this in your life with different things, you can probably make an educated guess that maybe I do have an addictive personality. And if that's the case, go to a professional and get a confirmation or not.
Take some tests. It won't hurt.
Yeah. And if it turns out that you do have, then yes, professional help.
Then you can contribute to ThyGap. But that's one angle of it. But the reason why I find it even more important is, like I said, you get addicted to addiction.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very dangerous place to be. Where you're like, you know that hollow feeling you get once you finish a show?
Yep.
It happens especially during video games.
This is why we binge, right? We binge.
Yeah, you binge. Like you just are going one after the other. You rewatch it again and again.
Even though each episode is like an hour long, bro.
Right.
I've binged through a season of that stuff.
Yeah. And it happens with video games too.
Yeah.
You finish the video game.
That is like 6 hours.
Yeah. You have a hollow feeling and then you go back to it, replay the whole thing.
Yeah.
That should give you those are red flags.
Yeah.
And that's not the place I want to be, because after a point, once you keep getting that hollow feeling, then you just substitute with something else which you can get addicted to. So you start searching for things that you can get addicted to. And like I said, the problem with such a behavior is they're not goal oriented. You don't know where you want to reach. You just are worried about the starting point. And most often than not, they are extremely damaging. And which is why I feel it's important for us to keep taking a measure of something that we feel, don't I feel I'm repeating this too much?
Isn't this going too far?
Yeah, isn't this too much for me? Like 20 orders in a week.
Yeah.
That's like out of whatever number of meals a week. This is the number of meals I'm eating just because I can order.
But it's a good point that you brought up earlier, which is that it is very hard to self-diagnose.
Yeah.
So then I guess if there are friends that you can trust, if you have friends that are not afraid to give you unpleasant realities in your face, then I guess they would be the ones to reach out to and check.
Yeah.
Give them your full honest description of what you do when you're involved in your addiction or whatever, and then let them tell you. Frankly, whether they think you're, a crack.
Let them give a diagnosis.
Yeah, let them diagnose you.
Yeah.
And these have to be people that know you and that you trust. That's very important.
And you should not feel ashamed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't feel ashamed that you're addicted to something. It's not. It happens to everybody.
Yeah. The very fact that you're making this step should give you some credit.
Yeah.
So you should not be that ashamed.
Pat yourself on the back.
A little bit. Just a little.
Just a little. Yeah. Don't get addicted. Don't pat too much.
Measure correctly.
But that's about it. I think there is no solution. There is no conclusion to
I think there is a solution, but it's extremely customized. So it's tough for us to, generalize it like that. Different people, there are too many variables.
Yeah, that is one. But the reason why I say there is no solution is you are going to live with an addiction one way or the other. What you're trying to do is the one which doesn't hurt you much.
Yeah, and also you're trying to gain conscious awareness of it. Because if it's happening without your awareness, that is again a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Extremely damaging, like you said.
Yeah.
But at least if you're aware of it, that's some part of the battleground you've captured. At least for
there is hope.
There is some hope.
There is hope.
I mean, you've taken step one.
That's the conclusion. There can be hope.
Yeah.
Like war.
As Morgan Freeman says in Shawshank Redemption.
It's not Morgan, it's Tim Robbins.
No, Morgan Freeman says about hope, right? He talks about hope.
No, that's that guy writing the letter.
That is because Morgan Freeman
first he says that there is no hope to him. Oh, okay, got it. In the jail.
Oh my God, bro.
Got it.
Anyways.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Movie addiction, another thing. But there's a lot of addictions.
So, all of those reasons and more that probably we don't have time to cover in this format.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want us to cover more on this, just write in, let us know, and we'll do a full in-depth episode. Why not?
Yeah, actually, it's a good point.
So, until then, this is why addiction.
It's not easy.
It is not easy.
They're trying to kill my father.
Okay. You're not going anywhere without, following us on our socials. Instagram @_ThyGap, Twitter @ThyGap, and Facebook ThyGap it is. Or why not write email to us, mindthygap@gmail.com. For other people who only use Apple, you can also give us a rating and leave a comment on our ThyGap podcast. Because you know what all doctors say, ThyGap podcast. Subscribe and share.